Welcome back, friends. Today I'll be sharing a full day of meals for a family of 4 for under $5. In this video I will be sharing 6 meal ideas, and I'll include the screenshot of the ingredients to show you that they came in at $4.90 in my areas. Now keep in mind that prices may vary depending on the areas, and as always, if you need assistance with any type of resource such as food, be sure to reach out to your local resource centers or be sure to call 211 and they can provide any further assistance that you may need. So now let's get into the video. Okay, so these are the items that we're going to need for our $5 for a full family meal. But here I have a dozen, and I'll have all the prices screenshotted within the video. Here I have a dozen eggs. Here I have a full loaf of white bread. Here I have the pasta shells that I was talking about that are 28 cents. I actually took a picture of where they're located in the grocery store. They're usually in the ethnic aisle. So I have 2 bags of those. And they look like little shells. And then I have the sandwich made cheese. They do have the regular American, the Great Value, but this is the cheapest brand. And sometimes it comes under a different name, but this is what my store has, the cheapest brand. Here's the Bar 5 hot dogs, and it contains 8 hot dogs. And then if you watch my channel for any point in time, you know that I love the frozen mixed veggies. So I have a pack of that here, and this is 12 ounces. So these are the ingredients that we're going to be using for this video, and we're going to do a full day of cooking, and I'm going to show you 5 different recipes that you can make. More if I can, but I'm going to show you 5 versions of what you can make to feed your family for a full day if you are on a limited budget. As always, the nutritional value, I'll try to include it. This is not a way that you want to eat every day, but this is definitely a way to eat if this is all you have. All you have is $5, then this is a way to make the day go by until you can get more food maybe tomorrow or however it works. But stay tuned and we'll get into the video. So for the bread, there's 22 slices in this container, so that breaks down for a family of 4 to about 5.5 slices of bread. So I'm going to separate this bread according to lunch and breakfast, and I'll come back to show you what I'm going to do breakfast. I'm going to show you about 3 different breakfasts that you can do with this bread for your family. Okay, so here I have 10 slices of bread. So some of these I'm going to cut up, and some of them I'm going to leave whole. I'm specifically going to cut up, of course, what I like to call the butts of the bread, but that's the end of the bread, of course. So I'm going to cut up some, and I'm going to come back and show you what we're going to do. Okay, so this is the bread that I've cut up into pieces, and I'm going to put them in the oven to bake and dry out and form like breadcrumbs, almost like croutons. And that shouldn't take long because it's just plain white bread. So here I'm just going to finish up these last 2, and I'm just going to show you what I did. And all I did was take a pizza cutter because it's much easier to do it that way. And I just cut. Yeah, so there's no right or wrong way to do it. And then what doesn't break apart, I just go ahead and break apart with my hand. I'm just going to spread this out. I'm not going to put any oil or anything on this because this is a budget meal, so we're going to assume that we have very little oil and we don't have a lot to spare. So I'm just going to stick this under the oven and let it bake and brown, and I'll flip it, and then once it's done under the oven, I'm going to leave it under the oven to continue to dry out, and we'll be back. So I'm going to go ahead and just start cutting up these hot dogs. I want to go ahead and prepare them now because who knows what the day may hold, and I want to go ahead and have them on hand as needed. So for breakfast, I'm just going to use 4 of them, and then I'm going to put 4 to the side because I'm going to use them in a lunch to show you, and I'm also going to use them in dinner just to show you your options. So I have 4 here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and slice one in half. And then I could either leave it like this, but I'm going to go ahead and slice this half in half for 4 pieces. And then I'm just going to go ahead and dice the rest of these. Okay, so these are the hot dogs that I'm going to use for breakfast. I'm just going to put them in a separate bowl. Don't laugh at my spider bowl. I got these about 2 Halloweens ago, a ton of them, and they're still lasting. So I'm just going to keep one off to the side because there's something that I want to show you guys for lunch. But I'm going to go ahead and slice these. These are going to be for dinner, and I'm just going to cut them up the same way. Maybe a little bigger. And they could have easily been sliced just into little circles, but depending on if you have small kids, which I think I always cut them this small because I've had small kids for so long, but you don't have to cut them this small. You can just cut them into I guess circles or whatever works for you. So I'm just going to hold that off to the side, and because I'm going to brown these, and I'm also going to brown the ones I'm going to use for breakfast. But I'm going to go ahead and put this off to the side because, like I said, I like to go ahead and prep ahead of time. So here we have it, and I'll be back. Okay, so here's my hot dogs. I actually soaked them because sometimes there's like a slime that's on hot dogs. Not all hot dogs, but some hot dogs that I like to try to get off, and I wanted to do that with this. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that out. Let these dry in a colander, and I'll be back. I'll probably pat them dry with a paper towel, or if you have a, what do you call it? A kitchen cloth, a clean kitchen cloth, you can pat them dry with that. Okay, so I'm back. So I was just drying them off with a paper towel. And you don't have to do this. This is just something that I'm doing. You don't have to rinse them off. There's no requirement to do that, but I'm kind of weird about my food. So I'm going to go ahead and take these over to the stove and start frying them up, and I'll be back. Okay, so here are my breadcrumbs, and of course they have browned way more than I needed them to. This is more or less what I was going for, this color, but they are totally brown, but that's okay, because we don't waste food. That's okay, we're gonna make it happen. But they're nice and crunchy, and that's perfectly fine. I don't think, they're not burnt, they're just toasty. So we're gonna go ahead and work with what we have. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray my pan. Okay, because we have 12 eggs and we have 4 people, that means that 3 eggs can go for each person. So I am not actually going to do the full, well, you know what? No, I am going to go ahead and do the full 6 eggs for this recipe right here. And that's going to serve for 2 people. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So it'll be 6 eggs, and this is the equivalent of, I believe it was 6 slices of bread. So I'm going to go ahead and beat these 6 eggs. So I'm just going to go ahead and whisk this around. Now, if you had some milk or some cream or creamer, that would be cool. But like I said, we're working on a limited budget. So what I will do is I will add some water here. So this is about half a cup of water. So this cheese comes with, this cheese package has 16 slices of cheese in it. So I'm going to need 6 for lunch. So I'm going to put those to the side. I'm going to hold off on 4 for dinner. And that leaves me with 6 slices for breakfast. I'm going to put 2 for 2 of the meals. And I'm actually going to hold off on 1 for a lunch meal. But you would definitely put this in here. So we're going to act like there's 4. But I'm going to use one of these because I want to show you something for lunch. So I'm going to use 3 for this breakfast casserole. And I'll be back. So all I'm doing is just opening up the cheese. I'm just going to tear it apart. No rhyme or reason. And if I need to tear them smaller, I'll do that as I go. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and line the bottom of my pan with my breadcrumbs. And I'm going to use half of the hot dogs, a little more than half of the hot dogs that I browned. And then this is going to go, well, actually I don't even need that much. This is going to go in another meal for breakfast. So, okay, so from there I'm going to go ahead and put my cheese. I'm just going to place it. And American cheese is the best cheese because it melts really, really quickly and it gets really creamy. So don't sleep on cheap cheese. I don't even know if it's cheese, but you know, whatever. We're not gonna worry about that. All right, so this is what that looks like. So my egg mixture, I'm gonna go ahead and season it. You can put whatever seasons you have, paprika, cayenne, whatever. So I'm gonna put a little bit of the complete seasoning in here. And just a tiny, tiny bit of this Cajun seasoning. A little bit of black pepper. Some paprika. A whisk. Okay, so I am going to move this so y'all can see it. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pour my mixture over the breadcrumbs and the cheese. Now if you wanted to push that down in there, you can do that, but it's gonna melt right on top of here, so that's fine. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just stick this in the oven for about, let's say about 20 minutes at about 350, 375. I'll let you guys know down in the description box below what I put it on. And I'm just gonna go ahead and bake this and we'll be back. Okay, so here is the casserole all done. Now, you know American cheese is a little finicky, but that's all right because what you can do is you can put some more hot dogs up here. Put a little paprika or parsley. And then we're just gonna cut into it. But even though that cheese looks like it's not melted, it's still gonna be really creamy. And then once you get on your plate, you know, you can mix it on up. So there we have it, nice and cooked. Now if you want this to cook a little longer, you can. I only cooked it for 20 minutes at 375. And that's perfect for what I'm doing. And if you hear some noise in the background, it's my son's game. So this would be a portion, this would be how much one person would get. And then we still have another portion for the other person. So if you were to make just one of these, you would make a huge one. And that would be enough for 4 people, but because we're splitting up the meals, it's only going to be enough for 2, and then I'm going to make you some more meals to show you what else you could make. So like I said, you can make just one of these, one huge one, and you can layer the cheese and the hot dogs however you want it to. You could put more, of course it would have more cheese and more hot dogs, and as a matter of fact, when I was cleaning up, I realized I didn't put 2 slices of cheese on here. I went back and put it on there. So that's that. This will actually be good with even older bread. If you have old bread or you have stale bread, the older the bread is and the drier the bread is, the more delicious it will be. But I was showing you what you could do if you're on a limited budget and a limited time. You know, if you have butter or anything like that, you would add that here, but there's no need. This is just perfect. Super simple, super delicious. On to the next one. So I'm going to start on another breakfast option. So in here I just have 3 eggs and I'm going to add a little water. So these eggs of course have been beaten, and that's about 3 tablespoons of water. And then from there, of course my pan is on and it's nice and hot. Now if you have a non-stick pan, that would be great, but I have oil and bacon fat here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my stove down just a little bit because it's quite hot. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add the beaten eggs and I'm going to add the cut up hot dogs, and we're just going to make an omelet. Now you can make a scrambled egg if you prefer, but I'm going to make a sandwich out of this, and this is just going to be easier to fold. So go ahead and add my hot dogs here. No specific way on how to add it. Usually when I make an omelet, I like to keep everything to one side so it folds a little bit easier. I'm just trying to move some of my uncooked egg over to one side. And however you make your omelet is how you make your omelet. I'm not a professional omelet maker, and I don't like my omelet too dry. from here, you'll just cook it until you get it to the doneness that you like. If you don't have oil, like I said, you can use bacon fat, you can use butter, you can use a non-stick pan. That'll help you not have to buy oil. You can always find non-stick pans, at least ones that haven't been scratched up, because I have a tendency to use mine till the very end. But you can find those at a thrift store, and people don't always like to buy their pans at the thrift store, so the price is pretty good because they always try to get rid of kitchenware, especially when they have too much. So I think that's it for my egg. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my heat, and then we'll be back. Okay, so this is super simple. I mean, all we're gonna do is put together a egg and cheese sandwich. So I've already toasted my bread. You don't have to toast yours. And this is perfect if your bread is already warm, but I toasted mine a few minutes ago, so I'm just gonna show you how big this omelet is. It is huge. Yeah, that's a huge omelet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut it. And you could very well have just toast an egg. And now that I'm looking at it, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that the cheese is in the middle. Let's do that. So let's flip that over. And this is a huge sandwich. And because that cheese is in the middle of the omelet, it's gonna go ahead and melt. So I'm gonna try to figure out how to cut this big, huge, ginormous sandwich. You see how big this is? I'm just gonna cut it so that you guys can see what it looks like on the inside. You probably hear the chickens outside. But yeah, there's our sandwich. That's nice and filling for breakfast because lunch is going to be a little bit lighter, so I want to fill up on breakfast. So here's what the sandwich looks like. I didn't add any salt and pepper because I cooked it in bacon fat, and I'll add my salt and pepper in a few minutes. But I just want to give you guys an idea of what it looks like before I get into it. That hot dog also adds some nice flavor, and you can see the cheese is nice and melted. Super easy, super quick. Now you can make 4 of these sandwiches. Or, you know, if your kids are a part of this group of 4 or this family of 4 and they're young kids, maybe this is too much for them. You can always save it off to the side and they can have the rest of it for a snack. Maybe a half a sandwich is perfect for them. But yeah, this is nice, and this should be nice and filling for breakfast. So we're going to move into the next meal. Okay, so for this breakfast option, I'm just going to fry up 3 eggs because everybody's getting 3 eggs. 3 eggs may be too much, but because we're trying to use these up in the morning and get a very hearty breakfast, I'm going to go ahead and do 3 eggs. You can feel free to use your eggs throughout the day or however, but we're trying to get as many calories and such in for the day based on the budget because it is a limited budget. The oil will add some calories as well if that's your concern. Like I said, I'm not a nutritionist, but if we talk about adding some calories and such, oil ain't never had a problem. Sorry, so let me crack some eggs and get those fried up. In my pan, by the way, is just that bacon fat and that oil. I used this a little bit earlier to make another egg option, so that's why that's in there, because we don't waste. And yes, I could have put them in separately, but who got time for that? That's 3 eggs and oil. We're working on limited time, easy and efficient, and we'll separate them out as needed. And you'll let them fry to the doneness that you like. If you like sunny side, then you'll do that. If you have a non-stick, it would be a lot easier to fry eggs, but this is what I'm using. Now, if you watch my channel, you know me and Flippin are not best friends. I'm still looking for a fish spatula at a good price. So, until then, this is what we have. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my stove and let the heat do the rest of the work. And go ahead and get my bread ready. Why are you up? Making my YouTube videos, trying to beat you waking up. Alright, so I'm just going to cut my cheese in half because I am going to stack this sandwich. Okay, so I went for a slightly less toasty toast. And like I said, you don't have to toast this. This is just what I'm doing. And here, I'm just going to lay my eggs. Add a piece of cheese. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put that there because I want a bigger piece of egg on the bottom. Because I hate to get a bite and there's no egg, so then it feels like I'm just eating bread. I'm just going to add my hot dog. And that other egg. Then some more cheese. Listen, we have 3 eggs, so we're gonna have to use them. And like I said, if this is too much for you, of course you don't have to use it all. And then I still have some more hot dog. So let's just do that. So we have our cheese there and our hot dog there. Now I'm just gonna squish this on down. I don't know if I want to squish it because it looks so good, and I want my. Okay, should I cut it or should I squish it first? Okay, listen. Okay, I want to squish it, but I want to cut it and then squish it. So all that nice. Oh, you see what happened? See, I knew it. I knew I should have squished it first because I like a runny egg, but I don't want it to be like completely raw. But yeah. So see. I'm going to clean that up, but see, this is what we have here. I'm going to replate it so that we can get a good picture and a good look at it. All right, so let's just move this to a plate. Oh, no, honey, we can't be missing that hot dog. All right. And see, that's why I didn't want to toast my bread too hard, because I knew I wanted to squish this down. My bread is a little ripped, but that's all right, because guess what? We're going to eat that. And then you'll put your salt and pepper as needed. If you eat it with jelly or whatever and you have that, then you'll do that. But this is how I like mine. I'm just giving you guys a closer view. All my egg isn't super runny, but they're nice and soft. And that is absolutely fine for me. I'm not picky. And I don't like a hard fried egg. But if you do, you, okay? All right, so that's another breakfast alternative. A nice layered breakfast sandwich with hot dog, cheese. Well, American cheese. I don't know how real that cheese is, but we're not talking about that. A nice and melty sandwich. Nice for this nice cold weather, depending on where you're living at. Give this a try and tell me how you like it. So yeah, so I just want you to remember that these are options for breakfast. These sandwiches, you can make 4 of these sandwiches, or you can make a huge breakfast casserole like I did, which I already ate that. Yeah, me and the kids ate that. So you can either do that, make a huge one of that, or you can make 4 of these sandwiches. So you would make 4 of this sandwich, 4 of this sandwich, or you can do like I did. If you have the time and you want to be fancy, you can make the breakfast casserole for 2 people, and then you can make the sandwiches, just depending on what your family likes. But I want to give options on, you know, the different breakfast types for a family of 4. So you can do 4 of these sandwiches each. So you would do just 4 of these, or 4 of these, or a big casserole, or split it up. This was enough to do exactly what I showed you. So that is a meal for 4 for breakfast, and we'll move on to lunch. So here I'm just browning up my hot dog, rather frying the hot dog. I like to do this versus boiling because it's a lot quicker, and also it gives a better flavor. And this is just prep for the next meal idea. And you'll brown it as much or as little as you would prefer. Okay, so this is another lunch option. And I forgot to keep out a slice of bread from breakfast in order to show you this one. So I just went ahead and grabbed a piece of bread out of my pantry. So typically my kids don't really eat the crust, and depending on how your kids are, you may want to cut the crust off. But we're working on a budget, so we're trying to get as much food and nutrients in as possible. So all I'm going to do is this rolling pin. I'm just going to roll the bread down. I'm just going to try to get as flat as possible. And then here's my hot dog that I browned earlier, well, cooked earlier on the stove. Just a quick way of cooking it. Now you can use 1 slice of cheese, or you can use both. I'm gonna go ahead and use both. And all I'm gonna do is just roll the hot dog up. As a matter of fact, I should have just kept it together, but I'm so used to using one half of the cheese. But yeah, so we're just gonna roll that on up. So now, depending on your kids or your family, whoever's going to eat this, you could just do it like this. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to put it on the stove and I'm going to brown it. If you have butter, that would be cool, but we're going to use oil because hopefully you have oil. Like I said, I'm going to put a little bit of oil. If you have bacon fat, you can use that. If you have butter, you can use that. If you have a non-stick pan, you can use that. So my hand's a little wet, and I'm just going to wet this a little bit so that the bread can actually seal. See? You can put a little more water on there, but I don't want it to be mushy, but it'll seal this. Okay? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for my pot to come to a nice hot temperature. I'm just going to drop that down in there. Make sure that the oil gets on everything. And all we're going to do is just brown this because the hot dog's cooked. We just want to melt the cheese a little bit and brown the bread. You'll see the cheese will start to melt. As a matter of fact, let me move you guys in a little closer. And as you can see, the bread is still kind of tight because of that water. It helped to seal it. So frying it and that cheese and everything is just going to keep it together. So nothing fancy, but it looks fancy. And remember, we're on a limited budget, but we don't have to look like we're eating on a limited budget. So you'll just brown this as much as you want to. And this will get crispy. Remember, I say browning is flavor, so that's why I like to brown every and anything. This shouldn't take long. This shouldn't take more than about, I say about maybe 3 minutes at the most, depending on how brown you want it and how hot your stove gets. Okay, so I let that sit a little longer than I would like while I was getting a plate. And you could just put that on a paper towel if you have it, but I'm not going to do that. And I'll show you what it looks like when we go over to the table. So here we have it. So now you would, instead of using your hot dogs for dinner or even your hot dogs for breakfast, you could go ahead and do this. So maybe if you want to keep a couple hot dogs on the side, you could do this as an alternative to the other lunch. And remember, breakfast was quite hearty, so this should just be enough to take you over to dinner. And if you have any snacks in between, you want to go ahead and add them. So I'm just going to bring you a little closer. So there's our hot dog with our cheese. This is what that looks like. And it's nice and crunchy. So it's like a pig in a blanket on a budget. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this and show you what it looks like. And like I said, see, it's all together, not coming apart or anything. And that, just that little bit of water did it. So I'm just going to cut it. And this is what that looks like. Nice and cheesy. And if your kids love hot dogs, even if you're not on a budget, this is a cool way to kind of serve it to them, just to make them think that they're having something pretty cool. And if you don't have hot dog buns, we always use bread. My daughter actually prefers bread, so that's an idea for you. Okay, so lunch is going to be super simple, and that's why I want to make sure that dinner and breakfast are super hearty, because lunch is, like I said, super simple. And usually, at least I hope that you would have something to help to supplement in between those meals. It's very important that you have that. If you don't have it, like I said, then this should be enough to just keep everybody's bellies full for this one day that we're trying to, you know, work on what we have. So I'm just going to show you how to make 2, because we have 12 slices of bread left over, so that means we can make 6 sandwiches. So because we're serving for 4, we're going to go ahead and make 4 full sandwiches, and then you'll just go ahead and cut those last 2 in half so everybody gets a sandwich and a half. A lot of times, depending on how old your kids are, they may just eat a sandwich, so you'll just go ahead and set that off to the side, set that half off to the side for them so that they can get it later. Or, you know, if they're not eating it by the time lunchtime comes around, then, you know, hey, whoever the adults are may have to eat those, and that's okay, because who doesn't love a grilled cheese sandwich? At the same time, if you have soup, veggies, or any of those things, you know, I always say to add that wherever you can. So if you have maybe some soup that's in the cabinets from wherever, you can put that on the side. If you have some lettuce or tomato, make a quick little, you know, faux salad or whatever, you can do that. But I'm just going to show you what you would make. And grilled cheese is perfect. A lot of times, you know, people would just eat a nice grilled cheese and be good to go. So we used to have 6 slices of cheese, 12 slices of bread. I'm going to make 2 grilled cheese just to show you. But yeah, you have enough for 4. But because I'm going to have to eat this myself, because my kids are still pretty full from breakfast and they've been snacking in between. This is my challenge, not theirs, per usual. So that's what we're going to do. And this is just a matter of me showing you what it is that you can do. I like to bring these videos, even though, you know, I may not be on this budget. I want to show you how you can go ahead and manage your budget based on what you have. So I'm going to go ahead and just open 2 slices of cheese. And I'm just going to place them. Now, if you have butter, you can go ahead and butter the slices. If you have mayonnaise, you can go ahead and mayo the slices. Listen, if you have oil, you can go ahead and put it on the stove, bacon fat, whatever. But we're just going to work with what we have. I'm not going to oil the pan. I have a non-stick pan that I'm just going to put it on, and that'll be fine for me. I love a lot of butter on mine, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to show based on, you know, what we have to work with it for at least lunch. You can just make a grilled cheese and you don't have to have all the extra, you know, things. So this is pretty basic. I'm not even gonna spray. Yeah, I'm not even gonna spray my pan. So we're just gonna work with what we have. And as a matter of fact, while I'm talking and waiting on the pan to heat up, I remember having grilled cheese sandwiches as a kid. And I don't think that my mom used to put butter on her grilled cheese sandwiches because they always just taste like toast and cheese. So I'm not sure what kind of cheese she used, but I really did like it that way. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it that way right now. Because I'm so used to putting so much butter and, you know, all the things on here. But I just want a nice toast and cheese. And after that breakfast, you know, yeah. We're just going to keep it really simple. So my pan is heated. And I'll just let that sit and let, you know, the heat work its way through. And I'll flip this a couple of times just to make sure I get a nice brown and that the cheese is melted. So just stick with me. Now, am I the only one that has the urge whenever you have a sandwich on the stove or something with bread to squish it down? I have to do it. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe that's not the right way to do it. I don't care. That's what I want to do, and that's what I'm gonna do. So you'll see me do this throughout, but I'm gonna go ahead and let this cook up and I'll get back to you. Okay, so my grilled cheese is nice and brown, and you'll let this brown as much as you'd like. I'm fine with where it is right now. I don't want it to be too brown. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it up and show you what it looks like. So we'll be back. Alright, so here's our grilled cheese. It's still nice and hot. Nice and toasty. And this is without any butter. I'm just going to move it to the plate. So basically this is what you would serve. You would serve 3 slices of the grilled cheese, and that would be enough for one person based on our budget and based on what we have. But for presentation, of course, I'm going to go ahead and put all of the slices here, and that's it. So that's lunch. So yeah, this is our grilled cheese, and it's nice and melty. So I'm just going to pull it apart. You see that cheese oozing out of there. Still nice and warm. Good. Just a basic grilled cheese sandwich. Perfect, especially if it's cold in your area. But yeah, so that's lunch. Let's move on to dinner. Okay, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and do 1 pack of the shells. The shells show that this is about 3.5 servings. So if I were to do 2, that would be about 7 servings. And because I'm going to add more things to bulk this up, I feel that 1 pack would be fine for a family of 4. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to my water. Here it says to cook it with about 2.5 to 3 quarts of water. I am going to go ahead and do that because I am going to reserve my pasta water, and pasta water is always very important. So let me go ahead and start putting it in, and then I'm going to put it on the stove to boil. Okay, so I'm just going to drain my pasta. Okay, so while my pasta is still hot, I'm going to go ahead and add the whole package of vegetables. And they've thawed just a little bit, but they're still a bit frozen. But we don't have to cook these because basically they would have steamed in the microwave anyway. This was a steam bag. That heat will warm them right on up, and we're going to put them back on the stove. So my pasta is not smushy or anything. I pulled them off about 2 minutes before they were fully cooked. So they're going to go back, and I'm sorry about the scratching of the fork. So it's going to go back on the stove with the cheese sauce for about another minute or 2. So I don't want to overcook it, so that's why I took it off a little bit early. So I'm going to go ahead and get about 2 cups of this pasta water. And the pasta water should already be salted from cooking the pasta. So what I'm going to do to this is, hopefully you have some packets, and I always say to go grab some of these So since I'm doing a video, this is like a heads up to go grab some of your creamer from your local gas station. This is what my gas station had, and they had this, but I'm not gonna put a sweet creamer in what we're cooking. So if they have like the unflavored creamer, grab a whole bunch of those whenever you go to the gas station and where it has those. And you could have put this inside here, maybe 2 of these inside the mixture that we're gonna make, but because they only had the powdered, that's what I'm gonna work with. So because it's powdered creamer, it's typically used for hot coffee, so it'll dissolve really good. And I'm only using 2 packets. If you have more, you can use more, but I only have 2 packets. I would say 4 would have been great, but this is all I have. So I'm just gonna whisk that. So I'm putting the cheese inside here so that it can go ahead and start melting before I put it with the pasta noodles, so that they don't have to cook any longer than they have to. This is still hot, so this is something that you do really quickly. And I'm just gonna season this a little bit more. So of course I'm putting some complete seasoning. A little bit of paprika. A little bit of chicken bouillon if you have it. If you don't, then no need. I'm just gonna go ahead and whisk that around so that the heat can get to the cheese. This is gonna sit while I'm getting my stove ready to heat everything through. Okay, so I'm going to turn my stove on to medium high just so that it can heat up. And while that's heating up, this is my hot dogs that I cut up from earlier. This is about 4 hot dogs that I had cut up for the dinner portion. I'm just going to add that here. Now if your kids do not eat vegetables, what you could do is you could go ahead and make your cheese sauce and put it with your pasta and just add the cheese to the pasta, and then maybe have your veggies on the side so that if they don't want to eat it, they don't have to. But because we're trying to stretch and we're trying to get as many veggies and protein in as possible because we're on a limited budget, I'm putting everything in here. And besides, the colors are pretty, and a lot of times kids will just kind of play with everything and pick out things just to see how it tastes. So I say just go ahead and leave it like this, but you know I'm mommy, so that's my suggestion. So here's that cheese and the pasta water. I'm just gonna pour it in there. As you can see, it started to break up already. And then once it starts to heat, it will start to melt, and that pasta water will start to help thicken everything up. So we're just gonna let it sit and come up to like a really quick boil. Because I have my stove on a very high heat, it should take about a minute or 2 just to come to a decent heat. So I can hear my stove starting to sizzle a little bit, so that means that it's starting to heat. So I'm just gonna toss it, and I'm gonna let it go ahead and heat some more. So the best thing is to just kind of leave it. You're gonna stir it, just make sure nothing's sticking as it's coming to start to heat up. Okay, so it's starting to boil, and we're just gonna leave it on stove just enough to melt the cheese and to thicken up the sauce. And here's when you want to taste to see if you want to add anything else. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of Italian seasoning, and if I can find my cayenne, I'm gonna add that too. But now it's coming to a boil, so I'm just gonna go ahead and turn the stove off, because we just wanted the cheese to melt, and the heat will go ahead and finish up everything else. So it looks a little watery now, but it will thicken right on up. As a matter of fact, I can move it off the stove because everything else is melted, and we don't want the pasta to overcook. So I'm going to go ahead and move it off the stove now. So as you can see, it's still hot, even though I put it off the stove about 5 minutes ago. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you what it looks like. I'm going to show you what it looks like a little bit later on, so you can see that it thickens up more if you want it to thicken up a little bit more. But I'm going to go ahead and plate. So this is what one serving would look like. And as you can see, there's tons of food still left here. So there's enough for, I would say, even more than your typical 4 servings, or enough for leftovers, or somebody's still a little hungry, they can have more. This is dinner. Of course I have to try it because it looks so good. Of course this is delicious. I'm just putting a little parsley just to make it a little fancy. And let me cover over the hole that I made. So yeah guys, this was dinner, and that rounds out all the meals. Alright guys, there you have it. 6 delicious meals that you should try whenever you get a chance. As always guys, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Thank you for commenting and of course subscribing. And until the next video guys, bye.